the ranking member of this subcommittee, Ms. Meng, for any remarks she cares to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome Attorney General Bondi. Tens of thousands of public servants at the Department of Justice and its bureaus have historically worked very hard and continue to work hard to protect public safety and uphold the rule of law in our country.
Representative Grace Meng's opening statement directed straight at Attorney General Pam Bondi was not flashy. It wasn't theatrical, and it wasn't built for viral clips. But it was devastating.
Yet, I must take this opportunity to express my very strong concerns about this current administration's lack of respect for the rule of law. Over the past 5 months, we have seen numerous examples of this administration outright breaking the law. The administration continues to illegally withhold billions of dollars in funding that Congress appropriated, including hundreds of recently terminated justice grants that had previously been awarded through open and competitive processes. The administration is violating the federal law that mandates that the Office of Management and Budget publish apportionments and show the public how and when federal agencies are spending appropriated funds. The Justice Department has begun illegally restoring the gun possession rights of convicted felons and domestic abusers. It's allowing the sale of forced reset trigger devices without a background check. These are devices that effectively convert regular firearms into machine guns, which I fear will only make mass shootings in the United States more numerous and deadly. More than 1,500 individuals involved in the January 6th attack on the Capitol were pardoned or granted commutations of sentences. The president's new appointee as pardon attorney, Ed Martin, previously raised money to help defend some of the most violent of these individuals, people who assaulted police officers. Some of the pardoned January 6th defendants have subsequently been arrested, charged, or sentenced for other crimes. Under this president, the U.S. has accepted a luxury jetliner from Qatar, very likely in violation of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution. This president has also issued a series of illegal and unconstitutional executive orders, several of which are being challenged in courts right now. Presidential actions in recent months have also directed highly political and targeted investigations against law firms and individuals, including Miles Taylor, a former staffer for the House Appropriation Committee's Republican majority. Meanwhile, the administration has weakened law enforcement against political corruption by gutting the department's public integrity section, which fairly investigates and prosecutes corruption by government officials. It has dismantled Task Force Kleptocapture, which was started after Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, to enforce sanctions and target oligarchs close to the Kremlin. It has also ended the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force, which was created to defend against foreign influence operations targeting U.S. institutions. Furthermore, dozens of experienced career federal prosecutors, litigators, and FBI leaders have been fired or forced out since the start of this administration, including James Dennehy, the highly respected leader of the FBI's New York field office. I'm really concerned about what is happening in the Department of Justice, especially based on the department's fiscal year 2026 budget request. The proposed budget weakens the country's efforts to fight crime and keep Americans safe. The proposal reduces funding for the FBI, despite the heroism of agents like those in Minnesota who aided in the recent capture of the deranged man accused of killing a state representative and nearly killing another. It slashes funding to fight the trafficking of fentanyl and other dangerous illegal drugs by reducing the budget of the DEA, cutting the high-intensity drug trafficking areas program by more than a third, and by completely eliminating the dedicated funding for the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force's program. The administration also proposes a cut of more than 25% to the ATF, which will further weaken the government's ability to fight illegal gun trafficking. This budget proposal also puts further pressure on state and local budgets at a time of great economic uncertainty. The proposal cuts by more than $800 million funding to grants to local and state law enforcement for fighting and reducing crime, including a cut of more than $37 million to burn justice assistance formula grants that help our local law enforcement in every single state. I'm also concerned about the huge cuts to grants aimed at preventing and prosecuting violence against women, such as STOP grants and sexual assault services grants. The administration also proposes eliminating 3 valuable programs aimed at fighting and preventing hate crimes at the same time that the FBI is reporting that hate crimes are at historic highs. The administration's budget would completely eliminate the Community Relations Service, which was created by the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to prevent and resolve conflicts in American communities. These actions and this budget proposal simply don't demonstrate a commitment to the rule of law and equal rights for all Americans. I look forward to discussing these important issues at today's hearing. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
What Meng did here wasn't grandstanding. She wasn't interrupting. She wasn't yelling. She was doing something far more uncomfortable for an administration that already has a strained relationship with the rule of law. She laid out a receipt-by-receipt indictment of how this Justice Department is operating. And the most important thing, this wasn't just about Pam Bondi as a person. This was about what the Department of Justice is becoming under this administration, and why that should concern anyone who cares about basic democratic guardrails. And this is the part where we need to slow down, zoom out, and really understand why this moment matters. Because Grace Meng's opening statement wasn't just a critique of Pam Bondi, and it wasn't just a partisan disagreement dressed up as oversight. It was a warning, a calm one, a procedural one, but a warning nonetheless. What Meng laid out, piece by piece, was a pattern, not a single bad decision, not one controversial executive order. A pattern of behavior that, taken together, paints a picture of a Justice Department drifting away from its core mission and toward something far more political, far more selective, and far more dangerous to the long-term health of the system. Because the rule of law doesn't collapse all at once. It erodes quietly. It erodes when funding approved by Congress is ignored, when transparency requirements are treated like optional suggestions, when enforcement priorities shift based not on public safety, but on political convenience. When career professionals are pushed out and replaced with loyalists who understand the assignment isn't justice, it's alignment. And what makes this especially unsettling is how normalized all of this is becoming. We've reached a point where pardoning people who violently attacked police officers barely causes a ripple, where dismantling task forces designed to fight corruption, foreign influence, and organized crime is framed as reform, where weakening gun safety enforcement while expanding access to more lethal weapon modifications is sold as freedom, even as mass shootings remain a grim constant in American life. Grace Meng didn't need to raise her voice because the facts themselves were loud enough. She connected budget decisions to real consequences. She connected personnel purges to institutional vulnerability. She connected political favoritism to a Justice Department that increasingly looks like it's being reshaped not to serve the public, but to shield power and punish dissent. And that's the part that should give everyone pause, no matter where they fall politically. Because once the Department of Justice is seen as just another political instrument, it loses the one thing that makes it legitimate in a democracy: trust. Trust that the law is applied evenly. Trust that investigations are based on evidence, not allegiance. Trust that accountability doesn't depend on who you voted for or who you're connected to. When that trust erodes, people don't suddenly revolt. They disengage. They stop believing the system can work for them. And that vacuum doesn't stay empty. It gets filled with cynicism, extremism, and chaos. That's why this hearing mattered. That's why Meng's statement mattered. And that's why brushing it off as just politics is exactly how these warnings get ignored until it's too late. This wasn't a dramatic showdown. It wasn't viral. It won't dominate headlines. But historically, moments like this, the quiet ones, the procedural ones, the ones buried in committee hearings, are often the clearest indicators of where a country is heading. Oversight isn't supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to be uncomfortable for people in power. And in this case, Grace Meng did precisely what her job requires. She documented, she questioned, and she put concerns into the official record so they can't be denied later. Whether anything changes, because of it, is an open question. But the record now exists. The warnings have been issued. And history has a way of remembering who spoke up and who looked away. So if you care about the independence of the Justice Department, if you care about the rule of law meaning the same thing no matter who's in charge, and if you care about public safety being driven by reality instead of ideology, then this is the kind of moment you should be paying attention to. Because democracy doesn't usually disappear in one dramatic moment. It fades when accountability is treated as optional. And this hearing was a reminder that the erosion is already underway.